Okay, so lots of people have their opinions on who the best Robin is. I am here to put my own ring in the hat. My answer to this question is what a lot of the older generation of comic readers say, which I do agree with them. With that being, the best Robin is Timothy Drake, the third Robin. Also, some prerequisites for this. In terms of Robin, I'm only counting Dick, Tim, Tim, Dick, Jason, Damien, that's his name, and what's her name? And Stephanie Brown. Stephanie Brown's not winning this. I'm just gonna be severely honest now. So, yeah. One of the most popular answers for the best Robin will very often be Dick Grayson. The thing is, Dick Grayson's an amazing character. I would put him above Tim in terms of being a character. I would also say that in terms of being a character, Dick Grayson has better evolution through his character arc as Nightwing. But in terms of Robin, it's Tim, not Dick. With Jason again, he actually severely important in his time as Robin, as being the one who died and caused the edgy arc of Batman. Damien being the conclusion to the Batfamily, you could say. To the final acceptance of the Batfamily. And Timothy Drake being the one who pulls Batman out of darkness. Just saying this now, the two characters that will be mentioned the most in this will be Dick Grayson, Tim Drake. Tim Drake the most, then Dick, and then Damien. Just to clarify it now, Jason Todd is not the best Robin, as everything that as good for him of being Robin came from his death. Even when he was Robin, he was not well liked at all. And everything that gets good for him now comes from him as Red Hood, not Robin. Okay? Okay. So, which one is that? Okay, cool. Tim Drake is the third of the Robins, and the fourth main of the support for Batman. The order it goes in, for people who don't know, would be Dick Grayson, the first Robin, then Barbara Gordon as Batgirl, then Jason, and then it is Tim Drake. So, Tim Drake became Robin by being a stalker fanboy of rich parents who went to the Flying Graysons before Dick's parents were murdered, and would see the act. Years later, once Dick becomes Robin, or Tim Drake sees Robin doing the stunts from the Haley Circus. Eventually, through detective work, puts two and two together, yada yada yada. Confronts them, gets turned down, and you can see how brutal Bruce is being at this point in time due to the death of Jason Todd. Sorry. Due to the death of Jason Todd, he goes to get Nightwing. Yeah, in this time it would be Nightwing. However, Dick essentially told him to fuck off. Sorry. Actually, no. That is essentially what happened. He went to Nightwing and it was all, you need to go back and help Bruce, not as Nightwing, but as Robin. Whereas Dick proceeded to go, no, I'm done being Bruce's toy, yada yada yada. This is also very simplified. If you actually want it, you can read the comic. Cool. However, after this, he goes become Robin, trains Lords, etc. On to why Tim is the best Robin now. First off, he's often called the boring Robin, as he didn't have anything unique to him. People say nowadays. However, it's not true. His first solo series, by the way, the first solo series had more than 200 issues for Robin. It was really big back then. He reinvented the character of Robin, such as every single thing in modern day DC, like in movies, TV shows, and in most comics, all the modern day Robin stuff comes from Tim Drake. From the bow staff, such as in both iterations of Teen Titans and Teen Titans Go, Young Justice, and the DC animated movies, Tim Drake. The outfit most of the Robins wear, which is best described as the Young Justice Robin outfit, and the hacking skills and detective skills all come from Tim Drake. Okay. All the cool aspects of Robin came from Tim Drake. And that is only the aspects of Robin, as in his main solo series, he had lots of cool stuff. He was the only Robin at the time before Damian, and even then, not really, who had a family. And even now, in the modern day, comparatively to the modern day Batman family and supporting cast, he would have been the only Bat Family member to have parents who were alive in healthy condition. Healthy condition, who lived in the same city as him. As yes, Talia is alive for Damian. She's with the League most of the time. Same thing with Cassandra. Cassandra Cain's like this argument, but even for her, her parent Shiva, Lady Shiva, don't disrespect the name, trained with the League of Assassins, doing missions, whatever the hell. With good old Duke Thomas, Signal, his parents were in a hospital for most of the time. He was a character. Yeah. But Tim Drake had an entire supporting cast. He had a father, a stepmother, a girlfriend, sometimes a boyfriend. He's like the second or third only gay character in Batfamily. He had an entire thing outside of it. As well, they had far more stuff than everything. Okay. Now, people can say that the other Bat Family members are better than Tim Drake. However, there's one crucial argument to this statement. Without Tim Drake, the Bat Family would not exist. He is one of, if not the most, responsible for creating the idea and concept of the Bat Family. After Jason's death, we had Oracle. We had Oracle as a character, but she didn't work with Batman originally. She should have been in Birds of Prey. Dick was in Teen Titans. And only once Tim Drake came, it went from Batman the solo hero to Batman and Robin the dynamic duo. due to the way that Tim was made and all that, when he started, as I said previously, he went to talk to Nightwing because he was fired from being Robin. Due to Tim being Tim, he's the one who brought together Bruce's support group of children. Yeah. Tim's also the one who created several other teams, such as leading the Young Justice team, having his own generation of Teen Titans, and has worked with Justice League members by himself a bunch. As I said before on my Tumblr post, Tim, like Bruce, is like skips and knows a crap ton of people. Now, to go through this quick going now, Stephanie Brown, spoiler, and Batgirl wouldn't have been Robin or Batgirl without Tim, as Tim canonically had to vouch for her a bunch. And yes, Bruce was still taking in stuff, but due to Tim vouching, it gave Bruce more of enough confidence in that regard. Multiple of the Batman members came through Tim or talked to Tim, and due to this became good friends with them. Okay. And within the Batfamily, Timothy Drake, Wayne, is the heart of the Batfamily. Fully. He's the only character aside from Bruce who has connections to every single member of the Batfamily, and is also the only character to get along with everybody in the Batfamily. And you might say there's two characters you can try and say aren't, those two being Jason Todd and Damian Wayne. And Jason Todd's the easiest. I'm going to start with him. That happened during Jason's Red Hood days, when he was murdering people on his floor, much more removed. Nowadays, they're not. You can classify them as being at least on decent terms again. Okay, cool. Now, Damian Wayne, you can make the argument that they don't like each other. However, you could also far more easily call them rivals who still care for each other. Simply put. With this as well, multiple of the Bat family members can compare and treat Tim as their siblings. Barbara and Dick teasing Tim as their baby brother. Alfred and Tim canonically have spent time playing video games in the Batcave, Batcomputer. Cass and Tim, with Cass being an older sister, and Dick canonically calling him family, little brother, and other such. He is called Helena, his big sister before. Sorry, water. And Tim is the youngest sibling to most of the Bat family members, but they all still love and respect him, and he brings that family together. You fuck. Sorry. Here's the topic. Okay. So, why do people often not. And there's also a really good reason, by the way, as to why people often don't comprehend, you can say, this fact. Because DC Studios, since the early 2000s, crippled his character and made him boring. And as I said before, people calling him boring are incorrect, but DC Comics made his character boring. They removed everything unique from him, and they gave him a fuck-ass hero name. Because Nightwing's a good one. People, and also people, it's not that Nightwing's like an inherently cool name, because it's just as bad as Red Robin. However, the thing with it is that in the comics, so I want to make sure I'm completely correct. Because Nightwing, yeah, Flamebird, there it is. Because Nightwing is from Kryptonian mythology. And originally, Dick, I'm not thinking Richard, screw that. Dick Grayson went and talked to Superman because he was lost. He helped himself, talked with him, and Superman tells Dick about the myth of the Nightwing and Flamebird, which ends up with Dick naming himself Nightwing. Meanwhile, Red Hood, while with nowhere near as much mythological or any of that type of sense, had a good name, good costume, and made waves when he came back as since he was Jason Todd. Meanwhile, with Red Robin, it was not a good costume. People disliked it heavily. And it had no meaning to it and nothing new that came with it whatsoever. Okay. His superhero name, again, Red Robin, people just didn't like either because it was very bad, honestly. And yeah, but ever since the early 2000s, as I said before, in his original comic, he had an entire supporting cast of civilian friends and family. And yes, the others have friends as civilians, but none of them have civilian family members. Tim was the only one to have that for the longest time, but in the early 2000s, they ruined it by killing off his girlfriend, dad, and stepmom, like back to back, I'm pretty sure, to eventually making him just another orphan. Even though despite this, before his parents were killed, you had a much greater storyline with it, as was Tim having to struggle between his actual parents, who altogether weren't good parents. Because he wasn't a great parent, his dad, but he cared. And as the books would go on, he was improving. And being a better person. However, and even when the original Red Robin happened, the name sucks, but as long as nothing happens, like a fundamental universe-shifting event, would have been all fine. But oh wait, the New 52 happened, in which it erased. Made it so Tim Drake was never Robin and was always Red Robin, and just made him be another orphan. And ever since then, he doesn't have anything. as everything, as previously mentioned, was stripped from him. From the clothes, the outfit, the ideas, the weapon, the intelligence, and all of that. Another thing to mention, by the way, is that the other three Robins all had something with them in the New 52. Dick is the greatest success. Jason is the failure. And Damien is the biological child who's trained assassin. Despite this fact, and despite the fact that Tim Drake would have been the best, most likely person to take over as Batman once Bruce retires, it's not seen that way by a lot of people, especially when altogether he's up there in the Batfamily fighting rankings. However, I don't like the idea that Tim Drake only becomes Bruce Wayne. My bad, Batman. I prefer the idea that Dick Grayson becomes Batman first. Damien stays as Robin. And that you had Tim Drake do one of two things. He becomes Nightwing or Flamebird. Simple as that. Because Tim was for a decent while a threat in the Bat family before they made all of them be better, stronger, and more intelligent. Because despite Tim Drake for the longest time being the best detective, that got taken from him in meta. And not like fully, but instead of it being them not having nowhere near as good detective skills, may lessen the gap severely. He is also on multiple occasions hold on. He is also apologies. If this is not proven to you why Tim was a good Robin, let me tell you a story. I don't remember what book it's from, apologies. Joker could notice when the Robins changed, obviously. However, he only ever hated one of the Robins. That one was sorry. The story goes that Joker can tell who the Robins were, and he only ever truly hated one Robin, and it wasn't Jason Todd. It was Tim Drake. Because Timothy Drake was the only Robin who could, by himself, take out his operations without Batman, ruining the game. And again, just to show how much of a threat and how powerful, strong, yada yada Tim Drake was. Other honorable mentions I have here, by the way, include but are limited to having a full 200 series as Robin, having multiple different fan clubs, not being a little shit like Damian Wayne. Nope. Also, just because all my friends likes Damian Wayne, like to be a little bitch and just say, Damian Wayne's the worst Robin. I don't really mean that, but the person, you know who I'm talking to if you're listening to this, you know why I say this. Yeah. But yeah, Tim Drake should have been an amazing character. DC ruined it. I hope you all have a good... Oh, sorry, one more thing. That people don't like hearing. Tim Drake is one of the most, in terms of fighting skills, once he's an adult, he will be the most best fighter in the Batfamily. I say this as has been trained by Shiva. He's the only one who actively wants to be a hero. I want to continue being a hero. Both me and my dad have the different ideas of different possible futures he can have. Some include him becoming the next question after Montoya retires, him being Nightwing or Firebird, Flamebird, or him being Batman. Now, everybody, that is all. I hope you all enjoyed this. Tim Drake is the best Robin to me. I love him dearly. He's also bisexual, points to him. And points to that being actual thing still, even though after they made him be bisexual, his entire build got like way more skinny and twinky. That is all. Goodbye, folks.